millions of Russians can't get their own money out of the banks.
I tried to pull out 250,000 rubles, and the bank goes, "What do you need that for?"
Russia's banking crisis has entered its acute phase.
I had a savings account. The bank refused to give me my own money back.
You can't use your money. The account is completely frozen.
And soon, deposits will be frozen too. People are scrambling to pull out their savings.
I'm surprised not everyone's pulled their money out yet.
Even politicians inside Russia are now admitting it.
I'll be honest, most people who have money in the bank are never going to see it.
Why do Russian banks already lack the funds to return people's deposits? Why are citizens who simply want their savings back forced to produce stacks of certificates, account for where the money came from, and get sent in circles, all to buy time? When will Russia's banking system finally collapse and the failure to return deposits become total? Watch in our special report, Banking Collapse: How Russians are being stripped of their savings. Since the start of 2026, Russian banks have begun freezing citizens' cards and accounts en masse. Nothing like it has ever happened before. It has hit 3 million people across the country. All of them suddenly found they couldn't buy anything, couldn't pay for anything. On their phones, they saw messages like these: card transactions suspended, account blocked. And people can't understand why their card won't work. Some got the message trying to order something online. Others, simply buying bread at the supermarket. Some were trying to send money to a relative.
Sberbank blocked me, and I had no idea how it even happened. I just transferred 50,000 rubles. Not dollars, not euros, rubles.
I didn't really do anything, just sent money to relatives. My mom would send money to me.
Some came to withdraw cash from an ATM.
I went to my ATM to request 3,000 rubles. The second I hit the button, my phone got a text saying my card was blocked.
Every day, more and more Russians find their cards frozen by the bank.
Sberbank froze my 350,000 rubles and didn't even explain why.
Our transfer got blocked.
The bank restricted access to the account and to Sberbank Online.
So people call customer support, and every one of them is told the same thing: go to a branch, in person.
Branch visits, letters, every time the same. Please wait. My complaints got pushed back for weeks, then finally an answer: unblocking denied.
I'm filing a complaint with Gazprom Bank now, and here's what's interesting. Their staff tell me I'm blocked under Federal Law 115.
Federal Law 115. That is what banks are now invoking en masse to freeze accounts. It is the anti-money laundering law. People are told they are suspected of fraud, of financial machinations, of so-called cashing out schemes. And these accusations land like a bolt from the blue on millions of Russians across the country.
I came into an inheritance, legal money, and right away, they blocked my card. The account is completely frozen. They've pinned a criminal charge on me. Fraud and cashing out.
The woman is outraged. At the bank, they spoke to her as if she were a criminal and made her fill out questionnaires with bizarre questions.
Do you agree to stop committing fraud with our cards? And I'm like, what? Sberbank, I've got a question for you. Why have you hung this on me? And now I can't even withdraw my own money.
At the bank, people are told, prove you're not a fraudster. Bring us every certificate we ask for.
They hand me this whole sheet listing all the documents I have to provide, and all this time I can't use my own money.
The trips to the bank, each time with new paperwork, can drag on for weeks.
They still haven't unblocked anything for me, but get this, they sent me a text saying I have to come into the bank again to provide additional documents, which they'll tell me about at the bank.
It's a mockery, people say, outraged.
They don't answer my letters. They just fire off these little texts at me: denied, denied, denied. When I go into the bank office and tell yet another new employee what happened, they just stare at me wide-eyed. And here's something else if you didn't know. After a year, if it's not unblocked, they don't give the money back. After a year, that money just stays with the bank.
I printed out 400 pages of documents. 400. Now I'm taking them to VTB Bank, which blocked my card under Law 115 because I'd withdrawn a bit more from my own card for personal spending than usual.
The bank decided I was a fraudster. Law 115. I accounted for every one of my payments, and the response from the bank was nothing.
And only after days of wrangling with the bank do people manage to get their money back. And even then, only with great difficulty.
To get my own money, I had to trek between branches. No cash here, ATM won't give the full amount there, a withdrawal limit somewhere else. I was prying my money out of the country's biggest bank.
3 million blocked cards, and that's just the start of the year. Public anger is mounting. Central Bank Chief Nabiullina is making excuses, claiming this is the banks acting on their own.
In fighting fraud, we did go too far in some places.
But these are words for the public. Nabiullina knows full well the reason has nothing to do with fighting fraud. It's something else entirely. Banks are freezing cards because they have a massive problem with money. The funds simply aren't there, especially when people want to withdraw large sums or make big purchases.
The banks don't have this money. It physically isn't there. They have no liquidity, so they do everything they can to hold the money back, even money held for a day or two. That's liquidity.
Liquidity is a financial institution's ability to meet its obligations on time, to hand people the money in their current accounts, to return deposits. And it is precisely this liquidity that Russian banks have an enormous problem with. And the bank's problems, of course, become the problems of its depositors. Many Russians can't withdraw their own money from savings accounts. They put it there to earn interest, thinking they could always take it out when needed. That's what the contract says too, but the banks simply break it.
I had a savings account with a fairly large sum for renovations, and I needed that money here and now because the renovation was happening at that very moment. Almost 2 weeks of sheer stress. Good thing I had at least some cash on hand, otherwise I'd have been left with absolutely nothing.
Russians complain that bank staff hunt for any excuse to delay handing over the money.
I wanted to withdraw 250,000 rubles, and the bank says, "What do you need that kind of money for?" I say, "I need foreign currency. I wanted to buy dollars." He says, "What do you need dollars for? Where are you planning to go?" Basically, they put me through an interrogation. 20 minutes answering questions about my business, the taxes I'd paid, why I was transferring from this particular card, how much money I had in other accounts.
Bank staff demand to know where the money came from. Where did you earn it? Was it all legal? Have you paid your taxes? And this is what angers Russians most. Because when they deposited the money, nobody asked such questions. The moment they want it back, the questions suddenly appear. And more Russians want their money back. In the first month of this year alone, bank clients pulled a record sum from their accounts, 1,600,000,000 rubles. That is a vast outflow, and the trend is only accelerating.
The run on the banks has, in effect, already begun. Tens of thousands of closed accounts. Various sources point to exactly those kinds of figures for closures, specifically closures, not withdrawals. What we're seeing is the start of what's called a run on the banks.
Russians are losing faith in the banks and pulling out their deposits. The most aggressive are the wealthy, those with connections and ties to bank management.
There's a great deal of insider information, and the bank's owners, they were the ones earning the most on deposits. They're the first to pull their money out. Them and their friends. As the people in the know, they were the first to run and start pulling money out of the banks.
Those close to bank management and owners know that deposits will soon be frozen. Russians will stop getting their money back because these institutions are in deep trouble. And that trouble is tied to the flip side of deposits, loans. In a healthy system, total deposits and total loans should balance out. The bank acts as a middleman between those with money to spare, the depositors, and those who need it, the borrowers. But in Russia, that balance is critically broken. Far more has been lent out than taken in. And the biggest problem is that many borrowers in Russia simply don't repay their loans. Even by official figures, the share of bad loans has already hit 13%. The real number is far higher. The banks just manipulate the statistics to hide the size of the holes in their books.
It's a catastrophe over there. The share of unpaid loans is already over 50%. People are getting poorer. They have no money. They can't pay off their loans.
And if borrowers don't repay the banks, then the banks, in turn, can't return deposits to savers. The problems will only grow. The share of hopeless loans keeps climbing. It isn't just individuals, ordinary Russians who borrowed for an apartment, a car, appliances, who can't pay. Companies can't repay the banks either. And among the worst offenders are the weapons manufacturers. The banks were forced to lend to them under pressure from the Russian authorities.
They're told, no, you can't lend here, not to this one. Don't lend to small business. Lend to the military plant instead. Every ruble the depositors brought in. So he hands over the money, and the military plant says, I can't pay you back. What did you expect? I'm running at a loss myself.
Because Russia's military enterprises aren't built to turn a profit. They exist to churn out weapons that are incinerated on the battlefield the moment they're made. Lending to them, independent experts say, is the same as setting money on fire. Yet it was precisely through bank lending that Russia's defense sector got the lion's share of its financing. In effect, depositors' money was handed straight to it. But bad loans aren't confined to the defense sector. Construction firms, coal producers, steel makers, all of them are on the brink. And all of them have piled on debt to put off the collapse. They won't be able to repay the banks. Company directors are now saying so openly. Here, sounding the alarm, is the head of Russia's largest group of machine building and metallurgical plants, the enormous holding known as Kirovsky Zavod.
The volume of overdue loans, from the information I have from commercial banks, the number of enterprises that have de facto defaulted this year on their bank loans, de facto, has grown 7 to 9 times over. Not 7 to 9%, 7 to 9 times.
Across Russia, enterprises are slashing staff to part-time weeks or laying them off. Some are shutting down entirely. Here, for instance, is what the head of another major Russian plant has to say, the Cherepovets foundry and mechanical plant.
Year on year, we're down 68%, not 2, not 3, not 10, not 20, down 68%. The backhoe loader, so close to my heart, saw its production fall by 95%. And there are plants among those in our report where the headcount has dropped by more than half. Can you imagine? The workforce at the plant, cut by more than half. Big, solid plants with hundreds upon hundreds of workers have cut their numbers by more than half.
These plants are unlikely ever to repay the loans they took from the banks, which means the banks are left with a gaping hole in their books. Russians who understand this are rushing to pull out their deposits before it's too late. It's the smart move, and even many politicians inside Russia agree.
I don't understand the Russians who, out of greed, out of self-interest, maybe they really do think those interest payments at the bank, they're sweating over it, counting how much they're earning. I'll tell you, honestly, most people who have money in the bank are never going to see it. Most of them. They won't see it.
And the authorities are gradually preparing citizens for it. Finance Minister Siluanov has already said Russians' money could be used for state needs. After all, these are hard times.
We plan to draw on citizens' savings. It's a good resource, and that resource should be used as a source for economic development.
Very soon, the authorities will freeze deposits, and they'll justify it by saying the state badly needs the money. There's a war on, after all. There's a crisis. For now, officials are testing the waters. Russia's Interior Ministry has already formally proposed a cap on cash withdrawals. And Alexei Zubets of the financial university under the government claimed Russians' deposits could be frozen, supposedly to stop people buying too many goods and fueling inflation. But such arguments are just a smokescreen. The reality is simple. The crisis is deepening, and the authorities have only two options. Either let the banks go bankrupt, or let them stop returning depositors' money by imposing a moratorium on withdrawals. The only question is when it happens, and how many people it ruins.
They've got a month or two, maybe 3, guaranteed to get their money out in time. After that, it's all a question mark.
Already today, Russia's banking system runs largely on the logic of a financial pyramid.
And if you showed the real balance sheets of Russian banks right now, everyone's hair would stand on end, then fall out. It's a pure Ponzi scheme, and one that no longer even works, where the interest paid to those who brought money in earlier comes from new deposits. Once that flow stops, the new money stops coming. The old depositors stop getting paid, and the uproar begins, and the pyramids collapse. Russia's banks are huge financial pyramids if you open up the real statistics, the real accounting, and see what's going on in there.
More than half of the major banks were already hit by deposit outflows last year. This year, it has only gotten worse. Banks have begun closing branches en masse, almost 500 fewer in just the first 2 months of 2026. At the same time, the authorities have created an extra problem for them. The Kremlin is imposing blanket shutdowns of mobile internet across the country. People can't pay with their cards.
There's chaos in our town today since last night, and in some places since this morning. The whole town is locked up in the sense that the terminals don't work. You can't take out cash, you can't pay for anything. The terminals in the shops don't work, there's no way to pay for your purchases. Bottom line, the lucky one is whoever's got cash.
I was supposed to see my grandmother today. Hadn't seen her in 2 months. And the only reason I managed to buy her this bouquet is that, thanks to a VPN, my bank worked. A bank that's on the whitelist.
Our internet has been down for 2 days now, completely in the center in the Leningrad region. This so-called whitelist doesn't work either, not a bit.
Because of all this, Russians are pulling money off their cards en masse and switching to cash. The amount of cash in circulation has surged to a record 20 trillion rubles. People want their money where they can see it, in their pocket, or in a bank. Better yet, under the mattress. It feels safer when the internet goes down, and calmer with no fear the card gets frozen and you get branded a fraudster. As they empty their accounts, Russians are increasingly buying foreign currency, dollars, euros. The ruble is being propped up artificially right now. Its collapse is only a matter of time.
The longer you hold the exchange rate artificially, the worse the financial crisis waiting for you down the road. And they've been holding the rate for almost a year now. When it finally jumps, the financial cataclysms will begin, banking ones included.
That's why in Russia today, buying foreign currency makes far more sense than opening a deposit. Deposit rates no longer even cover real inflation. Banks promise an average of 13% a year, but prices for everyday goods and utilities are rising by more than 20%. Many Russians well remember the hyperinflation of the 90s, and they remember 1998 too. When Yeltsin was asked,
Не будет.
Не будет девальвации. Все, твердо и четко.
Твердо и четко. И не просто это я придумаю, или фантазия, или я не хотел бы. Нет. Это все просчитано.
And 3 days later, they declared default. The ruble crashed almost fourfold. Russians grew poorer. It's the same story now. Putin and Nabiullina insist everything is under control, that no one will freeze bank deposits, that they won't lose their value. But it's all smoke and mirrors. Because the Kremlin knows the real situation. It knows the military enterprises will never repay the loans the banks gave them.
And that means the bank will sooner or later be forced to recognize the loss on these loans to write them off.
and depositors have been left in a desperate position.
When the chain of defaults and bankruptcies begins, whoever's first through the door with their hand out and carries the money away, they save it. Whoever comes later, well, by then there's no money left for them.
Most people won't manage to pull out their hard-earned savings in time, because that money simply isn't there in the banks. As has happened so many times before, Russians will take to the streets in protest with slogans like, "Give us back our money." But this time, the authorities will ban such rallies.
The line is, you see, we're at war, and every last ruble has to go to the war effort. The ordinary person will get absolutely nowhere, and even the so-called political players can do nothing about it, because the Kremlin barks that it needs the money for the war, and that's the end of it. No one can push back. And most likely it will all be done brazenly, brutally, the way everything is done these days.
The decision to freeze deposits will be taken by Putin personally. Not Nabiullina, not Siluanov. But the scapegoat, of course, will be the government's economic team, courtesy of the propaganda machine. Russia's central bank chief is already being accused of wrecking the economy and deepening the banking crisis. But the economy, the banks, the savings of Russians are being destroyed by the war Putin unleashed, handing people's savings to military enterprises so they can build weapons that will be destroyed at the front. This scheme is even worse than a financial pyramid. It's doomed to collapse far faster. A pyramid runs on deception alone. Russia's banking system runs on deception and on burning money in the fire of war. The Russians who poured their savings into such a scheme will, in the end, be left with nothing. Maxim Urlapov, Special Report.